What's up, y'all? We coming in with another yap session that I got for y'all. Cause by now y'all know that I really love to tell stories from my past, especially when it comes to TV shows that I watched, anime that I watched, cartoons that I watched as a kid, and I was an extremely big TV watcher as a child. To the point where I was always confused because I used to watch TV so much to the point where I knew pretty much every show on TV. So I was always confused when it was like I would talk to somebody else and they wouldn't know what show I was talking about because I just assumed that every other kid just watched hella shows like I did. I used to watch because I used to watch Direct TV on my grandma's TV a lot when I was like a young kid. That's when I watched hella TV, bro. I remember when I was 7 years old, I went to school across the street from my grandma's house. And I remember I would get off around like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I would just sit on the freaking floor with the Direct TV remote, and I would just watch pretty much every show they had. And they had multiple channels. They had like Toon Disney was a channel. They had Disney East and Disney West. So like Disney West was like the current time, like what you watching now, and Disney East was like I think 3 hours ahead, something like that. And then they had the PBS Kids Sprouts channel. They had Cartoon Network East, Cartoon Network West. They had Boomerang with all the old school Cartoon Network shows. They had Nickelodeon East and West. They had Nicktoons Network, and they had Teen Nick, which before it was Teen Nick, it was called freaking The Inn, and it would play like Noggin. And they moved the channel. Like the channel used to be by Boomerang, and they moved it like past Nicktoons Network. It was like I think it was like two channels after Nicktoons Network. But I used to watch all them shows, bro, on TV. Like all those channels I would watch, and I'd watch every show on those channels. Like Discovery Kids had like Tuttenstein, Kenny the Shark, the Time Warp Trio. I remember it had like those three shows that I used to really like, and then Boomerang had all the old school cartoons, bro. It had like Johnny Quest. It had like Pokemon would come on sometimes. It had this like 80s Pac-Man cartoon that I really used to like. It had Josie and the Pussycats. It had Scooby-Doo. And it played like pretty much all the different Scooby-Doo shows back then. And then it had the Flintstones, the Jetsons. That was my channel. I watched the Boomerang since I was like probably about 3 years old, bro. Because my auntie also had some other type of cable. It wasn't DirecTV, but it was like before DirecTV. There was like this weird, strange cable. I can't even really explain what type of cable it was, but it also had Boomerang on it. Maybe it was the first version of DirecTV or something. I don't know. But she had like a weird box. Her box was like weird. And that was when I was like 4 years old on my auntie's TV. But yeah, I used to watch all of that. Nowadays, if you watch Boomerang, Kids Next Door is on there and stuff, and which is pretty cool. But back then, Kids Next Door was still on Cartoon Network back then. But yeah, man, I used to watch the Smurfs, the Snorks. There was more shows than that, but those are just some of the shows I remember. But a lot of the time, when you went on Cartoon Network, when I was a child, from like the age of around 4 years old up until I was about, I would say 17, Cartoon Network used to have multiple different like TV stations on it. It was like weird. It had a lot of different cartoon blocks. You know, it had Magoozy, it had Adult Swim, and it had Toonami, and they were all separate. Now Adult Swim and Toonami are like mixed together. But before, when I was like really young, they were split apart. So you had Cartoon Network, you had Magoozy, you had Toonami, and then you had Adult Swim that would come on after Toonami. And Magoozy would play like Naruto, Code Lyoko. What else did it used to play? Those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. And then there was like this weird time period when I was like 12 or 13 when they started showing all these like shows that were like live action, real life shows like Destroy, Build, Destroy, and stuff like that. And that one show, I think it was called Out of Jimmy's Head or Out of Timmy's Head or something like that. Which that show was kind of fire, low key. But during those years when I was, a little more young, they had shows like Bobo Bobo. Oh, on Magoozy was Bobo Bobo Bobo. and then they had Blue Dragon used to come on, and then they had Zatch Bell. Now, the one I want to talk about first is freaking. I want to talk about Bobo first because Bobo is like the most anime cartoon. I mean, the most anime you could ever watch. It was like it had every anime cliche you could think of. Bobo had, but it did it on purpose. It was like when people say that Hunter x Hunter is a deconstruction of like shonen. Nah, that's Bobo. Bobo is a deconstruction of shonen, and Bobo is inspired by Fist of the North Star, and you can see that it's kind of inspired by Dragon Ball. And it's one of my favorites just because it's so freaking wacky and all over the place. Like, they'll have a whole story arc where they're in a mall getting power-ups. Then they'll have a story arc where they're literally fighting on a person's face. Then they'll have a story arc where they're literally fighting on a giant toilet. Like, it's just funny, bro. It's the most anime crap I've ever seen in my life. And it's so stupid. Like, there's so much stupid stuff. And it's hella funny because it has, like, a bunch of skits, too. And it's like the power system basically is just... I call it just anything goes power system. That's basically what it is, because pretty much anything happens, you know, and it's like, it's crazy because it's like their power system is broken, because basically the power system is you can kind of like Bobo can change a person's backstory. Bobo can stop himself from taking damage by changing into fruits and shit. Like like somebody can hit him and he can be like, oh no, oh now I'm a cabbage, and he'll turn into a cabbage and it'll stop him from getting like hurt. You know, I know a cabbage isn't a fruit, but he turns into different vegetables and fruits and, you know, and foods. And then he has like these like animals that live inside his head. And then he has like these like little people that live inside his nose. And then he has these nose hairs, and he has the power of the nose hairs. And it's like, he has like this friend named Don Patch, which is like this little orange little dude. He's literally a pop rock, like the candy. That's what he's supposed to be. But he looks kind of like Sonic, and you can tell they were trying to make him like inspired by Sonic, because later on in the show he gets like a power up where he basically turns into Super Sonic. It's pretty funny. But it's just funny because basically their powers is basically to either create a skit or change the backstory of somebody's story or troll somebody enough to where they can actually attack the person. So pretty much every villain they fight is broken as hell, just like they are, because that's the only way they can really fight them. And it's just like the funniest mess. And it's like, it is like the ultimate brain rot as a show. It's literally so brain rot filled, but that's what makes it so good. It's like an anime version of Family Guy where you just turn your brain off. You're not supposed to take it super seriously, but it does have a plot, even though a lot of people will say it doesn't have a plot. It most definitely has a plot. It's not just random stuff. Like, anime will still have a plot. And it's still the plot of basically, like, they're trying to stop the bald-headed empire, pretty much. And on their way, you know, the main characters we have, Don Patch, which is literally a pop rock. He's orange. We have Bobobo. Bro has a yellow afro. He's swagged out. He's also kind of low-key a cyborg, too. Like, there's, like, multiple cyborg jokes. You got Beauty, which is this cute little adorable pink-haired girl, and then you got this one guy. I call him Stinky, but he has a name, but I just call him Stinky. He looks like Killua from Hunter x Hunter, but he has like silver hair. He has a black skull shirt. He has a crush on Beauty, of course. And then there's Soften, and in the anime he is pink ice cream, but in the manga he's literal shit, which is funny to me. He's literally a shit emoji. And then there's also what's the other one's name? What's his name? He's like a blue jelly guy. He's like literally made out of jelly. He's like Jelly Jiggler, I think is his name in the English version, but he actually has like a completely different name in the Japanese sub of it. But basically it's like all of them are going on this like giant adventure. It's like a parody of One Piece in a way too, because they're always traveling hella far, but they always travel to the most goofiest places. Like I said, they'll travel to like a mall, or they'll travel to like a toilet, or they'll travel to like the middle of a desert. It's just random as hell, but I love it, bro. And it's just the ultimate brain rot. And it was like, I loved watching it as a kid at nighttime, being confused as hell watching it. And I always, as a kid, I remember watching it and feeling like the episodes went by so fast, like, and you didn't really know what was going on. But I remember watching it when I was like 8 years old and thinking it was hella interesting. But yeah, I used to always watch it at nighttime. It feels like I was. I think it was on. It was on Maguzi, but it was also on Toonami. They used to flip flop shows a lot back then. But yeah, that was one of those obscure shows I used to watch all the time that a lot of people don't remember. And I recently rewatched it probably like, I want to say about 7 months ago. I watched all of it. It's still funny as hell to me. Next will be Zatch Bell. Zatch Bell is one of those shows that I call this a black people show because black people have certain shows that they watched when they were young. And the three shows that a lot of black dudes and black women watched were Zatch Bell, Inuyasha, and Dragon Ball Z. Most black girls watched Inuyasha. Most black dudes watched Inuyasha. Most black guys watch Zatch Bell, but a lot of black women don't remember that one. But a lot of them at least had an older brother that watched Dragon Ball Z, or they watched Dragon Ball Z themselves. But Zatch Bell was one that I always thought was interesting because back when I was young, a lot of people had the little spell book, that you got, and the spell book would hold, like, you could put your Yu-Gi-Oh cards in it and stuff. But there was a Zatch Bell trading card game back in the day when I was like 12 years old, and every little black dude always had the spell book. They either had the red one or the orange one. And I even had one myself. I don't know what happened to it, but I had my like Yu-Gi-Oh cards in it or whatever. And yeah, a lot of dudes had that, and I remember a lot of dudes watching it when they were young. And the show basically, like, we used to always call the little demon creatures. We used to always call them puppets, but they're not actually puppets. But for some reason, I don't know who it was who made it seem like they're actually puppets because they're not. But somebody said that, and everybody started calling all the Zatch Bell creatures puppets. Like, Zatch himself, they be calling him a puppet, but he's not a puppet. They're basically all just demons because they're fighting to be the Demon King, pretty much. It's like a Pokemon game, pretty much. Because you got, like, a special little creature that fights, and you have to beat the other creature and burn their grimoire. And when it burns up, you kill the demon, and they go back to the demon world or whatever. But this one was interesting to me because a lot of people actually do remember this one. But this one was never super duper popular. It was like this weird period where it was just like, when I was young, people kind of knew what it was. But it wasn't like super duper popular. But back in the early 2000s, a lot of TV shows would get products, even if they weren't that big. They would still somehow get a toy or a trading card or something back when I was like around, I want to say like 4 to about 17. It was like, even if it was small, it had Pokemon cards. I mean, not Pokemon cards. It had trading cards to it or toys. And Zatch Bell was one of those series that was pretty small, but still had trading cards and still had and it had like the little book that you hold the trading cards in. Same thing with One Piece. One Piece wasn't super big in America when I was young. It used to come on TV on 4Kids, but it wasn't super duper big. But they still had like trading cards and stuff. I remember my mom actually buying me a pack of One Piece trading cards when I was like 6 years old. But yeah, Zatch Bell was one that was pretty fun. There's not even really nothing to really remember about it because basically all that really happens is that you have our main character with the black hair. He's like the most generic looking anime character. And it's him and Zatch, and they just fight other demons. That's all that really happens in the show. But there's some pretty emotional moments though, because some of them, only one of them can win. But Zatch and the main character, they actually, have a bond with a good chunk of them. And some of the ones they defeat, they be having a bond with, and they be crying and stuff. It's a very emotional show. But it's really simple. And I would say Zatch Bell kind of reminds me of like, it kind of gives me Digimon, Pokemon vibes to it a little bit. It does feel like an anime show that you would watch at nighttime. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was on Toonami. I remember it being on Toonami. But I remember enjoying it a lot, and I recently went back and watched about probably like 40 episodes of it in the sub or whatever. It's still pretty good. But I can see it getting repetitive because it basically low-key the same thing throughout the whole show. It's just them fighting another demon and then burning their grimoire or whatever. So I could see it becoming repetitive to someone who watches it or reads the manga. And it also recently got a sequel to the manga, so that's cool too, where now Zatch is older. And his Japanese name, if I remember correctly, is Slash. I think it's Slash or something like that. But his English name is Zatch. And he's also voiced by Jimmy Neutron in the English version, which is pretty cool. The voice actor for Jimmy Neutron. But yeah, that was one I really liked as a kid. That kind of gave me Pokemon vibes, kind of gave me you know, kind of gave me Digimon vibes. It feels like something you'd watch right after Digimon goes off. It feels like this is something that will come on after Digimon. Even though Digimon used to come on Toon Disney at like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how I used to watch Digimon. I used to stay up all night to watch Digimon on Toon Disney. I used to literally be about to pass out trying to watch that. And then last but not least was Blue Dragon. And Blue Dragon is one, I remember watching a couple of episodes on it, a couple of episodes of it. But I always liked it because it looks like Dragon Ball. When I was a little kid, I thought it was like some kind of, I thought Toriyama had some kind of extended universe or something. Because I would always see it on TV and I'd be like, that looks exactly like Dragon Ball. But it turns out he just did the art for it. But I kind of look at it as like an extended universe for Toriyama. That's how I look at it. You know, kind of like how Arielle is connected to Dragon Ball. And then, like, you know, Chrono Trigger looks very similar because he did the art for that as well. And then he did the art for Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest actually has a couple of anime adaptations too. And it actually was super popular and shit. But yeah, Blue Dragon was one I really like because it's like, I always like adventure-esque anime or adventure cartoons. It doesn't even matter if it's an anime or not. If it's just an adventure-style show, I like it, like Adventure Time. And this was one I remember as a kid. I thought it was really cool because it's like the power system is their shadows turn into manifestations of dragons, which I thought was cool. It just turns into dragons. So they all have their own dragon shadow creature thing. So it's kind of almost like Pokemon too. And I just thought that was really cool as a kid. And the fact that they're like running around like genuinely on an adventure, it gives me like Pokemon vibes because they're in like a valley or a forest or whatever, and it's just a group of kids and they're fighting with their dragon creatures. So it's really similar to that. And I remember being on Cartoon Network. I don't remember watching a lot of episodes of this one though. Maybe a few. I don't think it was on Cartoon Network that long. It was probably on Cartoon Network maybe for like 4 or 5 months or something. Because I don't remember watching it a lot. And I used to watch Cartoon Network like religiously. But I remember bobobo being on like all the time. And I remember Zatch being on all the time. But yeah, these are just 3 shows that I thought were really interesting that a lot of people don't usually fully remember. But I remember all 3 of them. I never forgot about them. You know, it's funny because people always say bobobo was like a fever dream. I'm like, facts. Because it feels like that shit wasn't even real, but it was. But that's all I really wanted to talk about. I hope you guys are having a good day. Take care. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be making more videos, you know, when I have my little off time. Because y'all know I got 2 jobs now. I'm 2 guys now. But I hope you guys are having a good day. Peace and blessings. Take care. Have a good one.